My name is Lisa Carter, and the day my own son threw me out like I was nothing, was the day everything changed. Are you serious right now? I shouted, grabbing the edge of the kitchen counter just to stop myself from collapsing. You're throwing me out of this house? The house I raised you in? Brandon didn't flinch. He just crossed his arms, that smug, ice-cold look painted across his face like I was just another problem to remove from his perfect little life. This isn't your house anymore, Mom, he said, voice flat like a stranger. It's mine. I'm the one who paid off the mortgage. I'm the one running this family now. I blinked. Hard. As if maybe, if I looked again, the man in front of me would turn back into the little boy I once held through nightmares, who cried when he scraped his knees, who swore he'd never leave me. But no. That boy was gone. This house was your father's, Brandon. He left it to us. Not for you to kick me out when your wife gets tired of me doing the dishes wrong. Brandon rolled his eyes and looked over his shoulder. That's when she walked in. Her. Melissa. His wife. Hair tied up in that perfect bun, wearing that smug little robe I bought her on Christmas, with my own hands. And she was sipping her coffee like this was a damn spa retreat. She's making this harder than it needs to be, babe, Melissa purred, wrapping her arms around my son. It's not like we're sending her to the streets. She can go to that old retirement place in the valley. Plenty of people her age love it. I almost lunged at her. But I didn't. I just stood there, mouth open, lungs burning, fists shaking, trying to understand what kind of cruel joke this was. I am 63, Melissa. I am not going to some damn home. I still work, I still cook, I still clean, and, my voice cracked, I raised this entire family while you were still figuring out how to do your eyeliner. She scoffed. Well, maybe if you had spent more time saving money instead of playing housewife, you wouldn't be so dependent, would you? That was it. My heart snapped. Get out of my face, I spat. You think I didn't see through you the moment you walked through that door? You've been trying to push me out since day one. Melissa just smiled. And now it's finally happening. I turned to Brandon, my own son, one last time. You're really letting her do this? He didn't look at me. He just picked up my keys and put them on the counter. I need your room for the baby, he said. We already called a moving service. They'll be here in the morning. I couldn't breathe. My own son. My only child. He didn't even call me Mom. Not once during this whole fight. Just like that, I was no longer family. And still, somehow, the worst wasn't even over. I went to my room. Shut the door. Locked it. Pressed my back against it like that would hold back the heartbreak. I looked around at everything I had built. Every photo frame. Every quilt. Every little peek of our family's history, packed into the room they were going to gut and paint over with some baby blue wallpaper. They had no idea what they were doing. No idea what they were throwing away. I sat down at my desk and opened the drawer I hadn't touched in years. There it was. A plain, black envelope with my name written in my late husband's handwriting. I had promised him I wouldn't open it unless I had no other choice. Well. This was it. I took a deep breath and slid it open. And what I found inside changed everything. There were two things. A single sheet of legal paper, with a lawyer's signature. And a small, unmarked USB stick. I stared at the document, reading the words over and over until they burned into my brain. This document confirms that Lisa Carter is the sole beneficiary of Carter Innovations Incorporated, holding 51% of Class A voting shares, effective upon the death of Jonathan Carter. My throat went dry. Carter Innovations. The little tech company my husband built from scratch in our garage was now worth $1.2 billion. And I owned more than half of it. For a moment, I sat there in shock. Then, I laughed. A broken, disbelieving laugh that turned into tears and hiccups and more tears. Because my son, the same son who thought I was a burden, was about to learn who actually ran this family. And the best part? He had no idea what was coming. I wiped my face, stood up, and packed the envelope carefully in my purse. Let them celebrate. Let them redecorate my room and throw my things in boxes. They could have the house. I was about to take the empire. And when they found out, when they found out. Let's just say, they'd wish they had treated Mom a little better. The next morning, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't even speak to them. I left the house before sunrise. Brandon and Melissa could keep their fake smiles and new nursery plans. I had bigger things to do. My first stop was my old lawyer's office downtown. He hadn't seen me in nearly a decade, but the moment I handed him that black envelope, his eyes widened like he'd seen a ghost. "Lisa," he whispered. "You finally opened it." I nodded. "And now I need to activate it." He didn't ask questions. He just made a few calls, had his assistant pull up digital records, and within the hour, I had an official shareholder meeting scheduled, one where I would be standing at the head of the table. You see, what Brandon didn't know, what no one in our family knew, was that my husband left me more than a house and a broken heart. He left me the controlling stake in the very company Brandon had been bragging about joining last year as a junior executive. Carter Innovations wasn't just another startup anymore. It was the fourth largest private tech firm in the country. And as of this morning, I owned the chair. When I walked into the skyscraper later that week, security almost stopped me. "Ma'am, you need an appointment." But before he could finish, another voice shouted from across the lobby, "Mrs. Carter?" A sharply dressed man in a navy blue suit jogged over. "We weren't expecting you until 11. The board is already upstairs waiting." He turned to the guard and gave a sharp nod. "She's the majority shareholder." The guard's mouth dropped open. I smiled. "Nice to meet you." Upstairs, the conference room was buzzing. 15 people, all men in expensive suits, sat around a marble table that probably cost more than my whole house. At the far end, right near the window, sat Brandon. He was laughing at something. Probably bragging again. Until he saw me walk in. His jaw locked. "Mom? What are you?" I raised a hand. "Sit down, Mr. Carter." The room froze. Even the CEO, a man named David Glass, who'd known my husband for years, looked stunned. I pulled out the chair at the head of the table and placed the folder down. "According to this document, I now hold 51% of Class A shares. That gives me controlling interest over Carter Innovations. Is anyone here disputing that?" Silence. Then David cleared his throat. "That's correct. Legally binding and fully executed upon Jonathan's passing. You now own the company." I turned my gaze on Brandon. He looked like he'd swallowed a knife. "You see," I said slowly, "while you were busy shoving me out of my own home, I was busy preparing to take back everything your father and I built together." "Mom, wait." "No," I snapped. "You don't get to mom me now. Not after what you did. Not after you let that girl humiliate me in my own kitchen and told me I wasn't family anymore." I stood and leaned forward on the table, locking eyes with every executive present. I may not look like much. I don't wear $1,000 suits or drive fancy cars. But I stood beside Jonathan Carter when this company was just an idea on a napkin. I packed sandwiches while he coded. I typed out his first business plan while our baby cried in the next room. I stayed through failure. Through debt. Through cancer. I looked at Brandon again. "And you? You couldn't even let me keep my bed." The room was dead quiet. Then, I took a deep breath and sat back down. As of this moment, I am assuming active control of the company. There will be some restructuring. Some reevaluation of certain hires. But rest assured, I didn't come here to play games. Someone started clapping. Then another. Then the whole room. Everyone except Brandon. He just sat there, pale and shaking. "What happens now?" he muttered. I stood, grabbed my purse, and walked to the door. I turned back once. "You wanted power, Brandon? Congratulations. You're about to learn what real power looks like. And it's wearing heels, pearls, and the name of the woman you kicked out." He showed up at my apartment 3 days later. No call. No warning. Just a knock at the door like nothing had happened. I didn't answer at first. But when I peeked through the peephole and saw him, suit wrinkled, tie undone, shoulders slouched like a scolded child, something in me said, "Open it." Not for closure. Not for kindness. But because I wanted to see what excuse he'd bring this time. I cracked the door just enough. "Mom." His voice cracked. "Please." I opened it fully, but didn't move aside. "You here to give me another trash bag?" I asked. "Or did you forget something you needed to throw out with me?" Brandon winced. "No. God, no. I came to apologize." I crossed my arms. "Took you long enough." "I didn't know. I didn't know Dad left you the company. I didn't know anything about the shares or the will." "That's not why you should be apologizing," I cut in. "You didn't throw me out because of a company. You threw me out because Melissa didn't want your mother ruining the vibe." He looked away. "Guilty." I was trying to start my own family," he whispered. "I thought maybe you were holding me back." My chest tightened. All these years I raised him alone. All these years I protected him from the worst of this world, and somehow, I still became the weight he needed to drop. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "You know what your father used to say?" I said, keeping my voice level. "That blood builds a bridge, but love is what keeps it standing." Brandon blinked. "And the second I became inconvenient to your new life, you let that bridge crumble like it was made of matchsticks." He swallowed hard. "You're right." I stared at him. "You didn't just evict me from your house. You evicted me from your life. And now that you see I'm not weak, not worthless, not left behind, suddenly, you want to play son again?" "No," he said quickly. "No, I always loved you, I swear, I messed up. I didn't know what I had. I let Melissa get in my head, and..." I held up my hand. "Don't you dare blame her. You chose. You packed my things. You stood by the door and watched me leave." Silence. He looked so small now. Not the arrogant boy who had sneered at me over breakfast. Not the proud new homeowner showing off his wife's new curtains. Just, lost. "Is there anything I can do to fix this?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. "You can't rewind betrayal." Back at Carter Innovations, I dove into work like it was war. Because it was. The company had gone soft in the years after Jonathan died. Too many yes men. Too many shortcuts. Too many networking lunches and not enough actual building. I fired 3 executives in the first week. Doubled the research budget. And brought back the small, hungry team my husband once trusted with his wildest ideas. People stared at me in the hallways. Some with awe. Some with fear. But no one underestimated me now. I didn't just inherit Jonathan's company. I inherited his vision. His grit. His refusal to bow. And every time I passed Brandon's empty desk, I didn't feel regret. I felt justice. Then one day, he showed up again, this time in the boardroom. He'd shaved, dressed better, looked like he'd rehearsed every step of this moment. He waited until everyone left the meeting before approaching. "I know you don't want to see me," he began. "But I've been volunteering at the foundation. The Carter Trust." I raised an eyebrow. "The one for low-income families?" He nodded. "Yeah. I've been helping with resumes." Job placements. Giving speeches on second chances. I tilted my head. Second chances? You think you're the expert now? No, he admitted. But I know what it's like to ruin your first one. He looked me in the eyes, and this time I saw something real in them. Not pity. Not guilt. Growth. I'm not asking for my job back, he said. I just want to earn your respect again. Even if it takes years. For the first time since that morning he threw me out, I didn't feel like hitting back. I just felt tired. You want to work? I said. Then work. He blinked. You mean? I mean start at the bottom. No office. No title. You'll answer phones, get coffee, learn the company from the roots up. And every time someone asks if you're related to me, you'll say no. Because the only thing that matters here is merit. He nodded. And for the first time, he didn't argue. That night, I sat alone in my office, looking at the skyline. My name was finally engraved on the plaque beside the door, Lisa Carter, chairwoman and CEO. And yet, what mattered more was something quieter. I didn't need revenge anymore. I just needed peace. But peace doesn't come from punishing people. It comes from knowing you survived them and rose above. 3 weeks. That's how long Brandon kept his head down. No complaints. No favors. He brewed coffee, booked meetings, and quietly rebuilt his dignity, one small task at a time. But peace never lasts long when snakes still lurk in the grass. And one morning, just as I was walking out of a pitch meeting, she showed up. Melissa. Wearing designer heels, carrying an overpriced tote, and starting into the office like she still owned the air. She didn't even bother checking in with reception. Excuse me? I said, stepping in front of her. Can I help you? She gave me a thin smile. Oh, Lisa. You always did love playing gatekeeper. I'm just here to see my husband. My jaw tensed. Your husband is in the mailroom. Filing vendor contracts. She blinked. Mailroom? Yes, I said. Where people work when they don't believe in handouts. She laughed, loud, fake, cruel. You actually demoted your own son, she scoffed. Wow. I knew you were bitter, but this is next level controlling. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. No, sweetheart. This is called accountability. Something you clearly never learned in that manicured life of yours. She flinched. I just want to talk to Brandon, she snapped. We've got things to figure out. I'm sure you do, I said. Like how to pay rent without a husband who's finally growing a spine. She stepped back, folding her arms. Look, I don't know what fantasy you think you're living out here, but you're not the main character in this story. Okay? You're a widow with a title. That's all. Jonathan left you the company out of guilt, not respect. I laughed. One long, full laugh. Guilt? I said. Jonathan left me the company because he knew exactly who you were. And you know how I know that? She blinked. Because he left a letter. For me. In his safe. Locked. Dated 6 months before he passed. Her face froze. I leaned in. Want to know what it said? She didn't answer. Lisa, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and Melissa's claws are deeper than I feared. Don't trust her. Don't trust her games. And don't, under any circumstance, let Brandon sign anything she puts in front of him. Melissa's face turned ghost white. You're lying, she whispered. Am I? I pulled out a neatly folded envelope from my purse. Here's the original. Handwriting. Signature. Dated. Witnessed by the lawyer you tried to seduce last year, remember him? Stephen? Turns out he's loyal, just not to you. She snatched the letter, eyes scanning, lips trembling, then shoved it back at me like it burned her fingers. I knew he never liked me, she spat. No, I said. He just finally saw through you. She looked around the hallway, people staring, whispering. Her perfect little mask crumbled. I gave up everything for him, she snapped. I made him a man. I built that house. That life. You think I'm just going to let all that get taken away? You didn't build anything, I replied. You decorated a prison. And called it a palace. I stepped past her, walking toward the elevator. You know what the saddest part is? I said without turning. You didn't just lose a marriage. You lost a man who finally realized his mother wasn't the enemy. Later that night, Brandon showed up at my apartment again. This time, with a duffel bag in one hand and divorce papers in the other. I signed, he said quietly. I stepped aside, letting him in. So it's done. He nodded. She tried to threaten me. Said I'd never see the money again. That she'd take the house. I looked him in the eyes. And? He shrugged. Let her. I've lived without peace for too long. I'd rather sleep on your old couch than live in a mansion built on manipulation. I studied him for a moment. The slump in his shoulders was gone. His eyes clearer. Sharper. You're not that boy anymore, I said. He looked down. I'm trying not to be. We sat in silence for a minute. And then, softly, he asked. Can I ask something crazy? I smiled. Try me. Do you think someday you could train me? I raised an eyebrow. To do what? He swallowed. To deserve this company. Not inherit it. Not expect it. Just earn it. From the ground up. My throat tightened. Because for the first time in years, I didn't see the entitled child. I saw my son. A year later, he stood where his father once did, behind the long glass desk, overlooking the skyline, a man transformed by truth and trial. But the road there wasn't easy. And it sure wasn't handed to him. Brandon started from scratch. Literally. He filed paperwork, managed inventory, took night courses in finance, even swept floors after hours without anyone asking. Every week, I gave him harder assignments. Every month, more responsibility. Not because I was testing him, but because he was testing himself. And then, the board took notice. Not the flashy ones. Not the sharks who'd once laughed when I called the shots. But the silent ones. The smart ones. The ones who cared about character more than last names. They asked to meet with Brandon privately. And 3 hours later, they called me in. He was standing at the head of the table, sleeves rolled, voice steady, eyes focused. I'm not my father, he said. And I'm not perfect. But I've learned one thing this past year. Titles mean nothing if you don't show up and earn the respect behind them. So I'm not asking for your vote out of legacy. I'm asking for it because I've worked my way from the bottom. And I've come back up clean. Silence. Then a slow nod. Then 2. Then 5. Unanimous. Brandon officially became vice president of strategy that day. And I've never been prouder, not because he got the job. But because he finally stopped needing anyone to give him anything. The news spread fast. Press releases. Congratulatory posts. Even a little segment on a local business show. But not everyone was celebrating. 2 weeks later, I got a call from reception. Ma'am, there's someone here demanding to speak with you. Says it's urgent. I sighed. Who is it? Pause. She says, she has papers to serve. Her name is Melissa Carter. Of course. I went down myself. Not out of fear, but out of finality. Melissa stood in the lobby, hair tied tight, heels clicking, face hard. She didn't even wait for me to greet her. I'm suing for half of Brandon's stake, she said. It was earned during the marriage. And I'm legally entitled. I stared at her. Not with anger. Not even with pity. Just exhaustion. You want to drag your ex-husband through another courtroom? After everything? I asked. She smirked. You really thought this was over? No, I said softly. I thought you were. She shoved the envelope into my hands and turned to leave. But just before the doors opened, I spoke. Melissa? She turned. I don't know if anyone's told you, I said gently, but Brandon filed a post-nuptial agreement 6 months before the promotion. Her smirk faded. He waived spousal claim, I added. Voluntarily. Said he didn't want anything from the marriage he couldn't earn himself. Melissa's hands trembled. Oh, and one more thing, I said. He moved the trust. The one Jonathan left. It's now managed by a third-party board. You can't touch it. Her face twisted. Take care, Melissa, I said. And good luck finding someone else who doesn't see through you. She left. And this time, she didn't come back. Months passed. Brandon thrived. Not just in business, but as a man. He started mentoring new hires. Showing them how to rise, how to fail, how to come back again. He treated janitors like executives. And executives like humans. And one day, while we were walking the production floor, he paused at the old loading dock, the one I used to clean alone when Jonathan was building the first warehouse. He looked around. This place, it has so many stories, he said. I smiled. Most legacies do. But it's not about the story you inherit, Brandon. It's about the one you write next. He looked at me. Then I hope mine's worth reading. I nodded. It already is. He took a deep breath. Mom, he said. Yes? I want to rename the East Campus. I raised an eyebrow. To what? He reached into his folder and pulled out a blueprint. The Lisa Carter Leadership Center, he said. My throat caught. Because none of this, he said quietly, would have happened without the woman everyone underestimated, including me. I blinked hard. And for once, I had no words. My name is Lisa Carter. I was once kicked out of my son's house, broken, forgotten, and left behind. But what they didn't know was that I carried $1 billion truth in my heart. Not a fortune. Not a company. But a foundation. Because strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it rises quietly. And sometimes, when the world least expects it, it takes the throne it built in silence. So the next time someone throws you out, don't close your story. Open a new chapter. Because the ones they discard are often the ones who end up running everything.